Alright, I got a little update video for you guys. After last week's video talking about my problems and worrying about winterizing the boat, I got a ton of advice from you guys, and I've got a story that goes along with that. Go figure, right? Oddly enough, when I was crying about this to my brother, who my brother happens to be one of these RVer guys, he pointed out something that many of you guys in the comments pointed out as well, and it just goes to show that although I've spent my life on the water, a small portion of my life has been in the recreational world. As a merchant mariner, I've never had to winterize a boat before, that sort of stuff. So anyway, the good news is what my brother pointed out, and like I say, many of you in the comments did too. There are ways that the boat can be winterized without putting the pink stuff in my tank and without having to fill the hot water heater with pink stuff. So all of you guys that gave me all that information, thank you so much. For those of you that don't know, like I didn't, here's something that happened. So before we start, let me show you. Here's my water tank. It's 250 gallons of water here, and I've already put in, this is the part that pulls water out to the hand pump, so if you lose electricity you can still drink the water. This one goes over, and it used to go straight to the water pump and out. You can see I put a valve T in here, and so right now the water's coming out of the tank. I do this because just so you know, if any of you have an older boat like I do, I thought that my tank was loaded up with some nasty stuff because the water had a horrible smell to it. Anyway, the good people at Hayden's group over at the Island Packet Owners Association, they informed me that no, it's not the tank, it's the lines. And so I had put this T'd Y in here so that I can shut off the tank, turn on the suction, the other line, and put it into a mixture of water and bleach, and I can run bleach through the system. And yeah, I knew all about that. That's been working great for me for 2 years now. And I don't know why I didn't think that I could do that with the pink stuff as well. So the idea is that when it comes time to do this, I'll take my float gauge out and I'll drop down in there. You know, after I've pumped all the water out, I'll put the little small shop vac on the end of a yardstick and push that all the way down and suck out the remaining bit of water in there. Then I'll put a hose onto here into a bucket with the pink stuff in there, and then I'm gonna hang this camera and see if I can speed this up in the editing software so you can see me having to get to, in order to get the hot water heater, there's a bunch of steps that have to be taken, and you'll see why in just a second, so stand by. Okay, now that we've got this opened up, this is the paper chart drawer, and you have to pull that out because it covers the hot water heater. And then this is the double berth that comes up, and this, if anyone's wondering, is a lee cloth so that you can put it up when you're sailing and not fall onto the floor when the boat heels over. Anyway, here's my hot water heater, and you know what? I should probably, I think you can see it. Anyway, I have noticed that there's this bypass line. I hope you can see that. There we go. I'm trying to look at my little teeny monitor here. There's a bypass valve here, and it goes over here to the hot side. So when you turn this on, the cold water goes through here and comes right out the hot again and bypasses the whole tank. And then there's a drain at the bottom of the tank. So I believe what the theory is that you, when you're sucking, after you've done all your freshwater line, you know, cold water lines, then you start doing the furthest away hot water line with the bypass on, and as soon as you see red, then you stop, and you probably stop at that one, then go to the next one and the next one and the next one, so forth down the line, so that all the hot water has pink stuff in it. Then you stop, and then you drain the hot water heater, so that in that time the water in the tank won't, there's no valve that does that. The cold water will just blow through the hot water, and it has no reason to go through the tank, so it goes, the pink should go around there. So that's the theory, so hopefully that will work. But that brings me to another update. if any of you remember I think this is a couple weeks ago, I was talking to you about my problem that I had with my cheap Chinese hydronic diesel heater that I'm using to heat my hot water, and that goes into it. You know, there's a loop that goes into the hot water heater, and that, like I say, there's a couple things I think were wrong here. The heater's so old that I imagine there's a bunch of calcification over the heat exchanging loop in the hot water heater, and so I'm probably not getting the best exchange there. Having said that, it's probably not even, it's probably just one line up and one line back, because it's designed to be run with the engine, and the engine's, you know, running for a long time, where I want to be able to turn on this hot water heater and 20 minutes later, you know, turn on the hydronic heater and 20 minutes later have the tank full of hot water. So what I did to do that, after listening to many of you and some of my friends and trying to work the problem back and forth, is I bought this. Again, let me try to look at the screen here and make sure you can see this. Okay, so here's our freshwater thing. We got cold water manifold over here, hot water manifold over here. The big black things, those aren't big, it's just insulation around the hot water. Then I've got an expansion tank here. You know, it's not, that's not correct. It's not an expansion tank, it's a pressure tank, so that the pump won't cycle as much. But I've got the big 5 gallons per minute pump on here. And then what I did was I got this flat plate heat exchanger. So when the water goes, it comes out of the engine or comes out of the hydronic heater, it goes up, it gets in line with the engine, continues to come up here, goes through the hot water heater. On the way out of the hot water heater, it comes over here and drops in over here and goes every other plate across to that side, and then comes back out and returns. And the pump in the hydronic heater handles that circulation, but this pump right here handles the potable water. So what I do is I have, it's teed right in, you can see right straight down there. So I've got cold water that comes in here, pushes down and goes across the plates, comes back. I actually have that backwards. It goes this way because you want the heat exchange to go back, you know, in opposite directions from each other. Anyway, this is a little, what they call a solar pump. I think it draws like 8 or 9 watts, 12 volts DC. And as you can see, I just have it in here because I just got it running the other day. I'm at the end of our cruising season, so I'm gonna have to have this on a switch, and I'm gonna switch it into where I have the temperature probe for my hot water heater, so that when you turn on the probe to see how hot the hot water is, it'll also start the little pump, and that just is circulating water through. You know, it comes over here to the hot water tank and blows through the heat exchanger and comes through there. And I am so proud and happy to report to you, it works phenomenally. Well, there is one problem with it, and it's one that I'm living with right now, and that's that I need to put a check valve in here. And the reason why is that when you go to use the hot water, when everything's off, the cold water will run backwards into the hot water, and you'll get tempered water. And if you like really hot water like I do, that's just not going to work. So what I've been doing in the meantime is I just run the pump while I'm showering or shaving, and the pump is enough to keep the water from going backwards. And I have all kinds of hot water, but I've ordered on Amazon, I've ordered a 1/2-inch check valve, and I believe by putting that in, and it should have it's like the other one that I have that has a very low spring on it, so that it'll still open and close with just the pressure of the circulating pump. At least that's what I'm hoping anyway. But I think once I have that, then the system will be totally fine. I'll wire everything up and I'll be all happy. So that's another project that's good, and I'm all happy about that. And before I put all this back together again, let me update you on another thing. Bring you over here. If you notice, this is my, I think they call this the GX7, because it's a 7-inch instead of 5. And if you see this hole and you say, what is this hole? Well, there used to be a Blue Seas solar controller there, and I've switched everything to You know, every panel has its own Victron controller. So that went there, and I have to get something to either plug that, or I'll probably end up putting in a whole new panel if I ever get around to it. But that's what that is. And people are probably going to ask in the comments, this is just a I just got this and I've been setting it up so that when I leave the boat for the winter I'll be able to watch things. But this is a kind of, I don't know what they call it, a networking thing or whatever. Anyway, I have a series of cameras, 3 fixed and 1 pan and tilt. There's the pan and tilt right there that I end up putting outside. And by having this, when the boat's all wrapped up, if anyone were to come inside, it starts recording them, and it also sends me a text message and an email. And so that's what this is, if people are asking. But that's not what we're here to talk to you about. I've got all these things are all wires that are hanging off from me doing all kinds of other fun stuff, like fish light and all kinds of stuff. Anyway, so here's my panel, and if you remember, I was having trouble that I wasn't able to run everything off of the 900 amp hours of solar that I have now. And that so anyway, let me just cut to the chase. My good friend Sean, who's been helping me with all this stuff, came in and checked out everything, and he actually found something that I hadn't seen before. I had talked to you before saying that on bus A, all the outlets and everything would be run through the inverter, but the battery charger, which isn't used anymore because that's part of the inverter, and the hot water heater wouldn't be on bus A, and anything over here wouldn't, I couldn't parallel over to bus B or line 2. Anyway, when he looked at it, he noticed they had a copper, it's probably brass, a brass bus bar that's running down the side of the breakers, and they just went in with a saw and cut it off right there to separate those two to make the board idiot proof. So here's the situation with my board. The good news is that I can do everything that I want to do with it. The bad news is you have to be aware of that. So in the event that I was ever to sell Paquita, I have to sell it to somebody that understands you can't be making hot water, running the microwave, running the air fryer, and running the coffee pot all at the same time, or the air conditioning for that matter. You've got to choose where you're going to use your power. The board was set up before where that wasn't an option, so you would never pop breakers because they didn't allow you to do much. But now we can do everything. And to prove to you that, I don't know that you need proof, but here, now I turn that on, you can see the hot water heater just came on. And we go over here, we can see there's it's about 1.5 kW of load on the system right there. I can shut that off. Now I can run that and the 16,000 kilowatt, 16,000 BTU air conditioner at the same time. But I don't really think that's a great idea, and besides, when it comes on, I think it uses quite a bit of the capacitor, the capacitors in the inverter. So here's turning on I have one big circulation pump to move the water from the outside into the boat through the air conditioners. And then now that that's running, now we put on the air conditioner, and you can see over here, see it says 61 over there. Now the fans are coming on, and it's like, you can see we're only drawing 200 watts, but there we go. Now you see, did you see the amp meter go way up? That was the what do they call it, cold rotor start or whatever, when the thing goes. And look, so right now the 16,000 BTU air conditioner is running, and it's only pulling about 800 watts, and that 800 watts is for everything. So there's also any other charging loads that I have on the system, like my computers and my cell phones and all that, but it's also the Starlink is on there. That's a substantial load, meaning the charging loads are only a few watts. But anyway, so as you can see, if we look over here, we've got 539 watts coming in from the solar, and we've got 800 going out. So what that means is that we're doing pretty good, I think. Well, now we're at 900 because something else just came on, but right now we're running a deficit of about 600 or 590 watts. And it's a cloudy day, and the sun probably isn't exactly right. There are times that I have a theoretical 1100 watts, but it's very rare that I get all that because of the angles and that sort of thing. I think 600 to 700 watts is usually where I do best there. But anyway, so it's kind of fun. And if you say, why are you running the AC? That's another thing I got in the comments. People are saying, oh, you're an idiot. You're going to run out your batteries in 30 minutes and all this sort of stuff. So let me be clear. I spent $15,000 on a Northern Lights generator so that I could run the AC and charge the batteries and make hot water. I just don't want to put unneeded hours on the generator if I don't need to, and nobody likes to listen to it and all that sort of stuff. But the theory between setting up my panel so that we can run this off of the batteries is not, I'd love to say, oh, we go to bed at night. Yeah, theoretically, when the sun goes down, this thing's just running off of this. I mean, if it's drawing 800 watts and I have, 11 kW worth of storage, I should be able to go for 10 or 12 hours running that thing. But that's not what I would ever do. The idea is that if the batteries are, say, at 100% by 1 o'clock in the afternoon, then your solar panels aren't doing anything. And at that time, I could run my, if I didn't want to run my hydronic heater to heat hot water for the next day, I could just use that excess energy to go and heat the hot water. Or more, if I was down in the tropics, sometimes people, if you're familiar with being down in the islands and Florida and all that sort of stuff, if you're out somewhere, especially when you're in places like Puerto Rico and places where you seem to get rain every afternoon, we have to end up keeping the hatches closed. So the boat gets very hot in the afternoon. So it would be great if, say, 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the batteries are all up to snuff, and then I switch on the air conditioning. Not to live in the air conditioning, but just to slowly take the sun load. The sun load's going to be on the boat all day long, but if you could take some of that energy out, by the time the sun goes down, you're not getting a 110 degree boat and letting it cool in the ambient temperature of 85 or 90 degrees. Maybe you're getting an 85 degree boat, or you're getting the boat down to 85 degrees while the sun is shining, so that it's just regular when you're down there. So that's the hope, and that's the understandings of why I'm doing it. Very happy. There is one problem that I haven't addressed yet, and it's not a game changer for me. I know that these diesels are designed to run loaded up. They want to be 70% or more, and if you guys know more about that, please write something in the comments. But right now, remember, my diesel can, the generator I have can put out about 42 amps at 110 volts. Right now, it's coming in on a 30 amp line, and I can't change that line. I can't just up it to 40 and change the breaker, because I've got to change all the wire coming over there too, because I'll overheat the wires. I have to go down to an 8 gauge wire to do that. And so instead of, I said, you know what, that's fine. I can run a 5 kW generator and only pull 3 kW out of it, or a little bit more than 3 kW. And I think it's like 3.2 or something like that. Anyway, that's been working. It's not my plan to do that forever. If I can put a 40 amp breaker in there, and if you're wondering how I figure all this stuff out, the Victron system is awesome. You put in, you tell it what you want the Victron inverter to pull off of the generator. So if the generator has a 40 amp breaker and has the ability to put out 42 amps, I'll probably put in 39 or 38 amps into whatever the Victron, the Multiplus says that it will do. So then what happens is, if I'm running the air conditioning and it says that I'm only using 1.5 kW, it'll put the rest of it into charging up to, I think, 50 amps. Is that right? Or 70 amps? I forget. I keep going back between the systems between the boat and my house in Puerto Rico, and I get confused. But anyway, so if you were to go and turn the hot water heater on, or if Crysalita turned the air fryer on, or we made a cup of coffee, it doesn't blow the circuit. What it does is the the Victron system is smart enough that it sees the load coming and it backs off the charging down to keep you in parameter. In this case, I have it set for just under 30 amps, but I would do the same for a 40 amp, so that way that would do that. So that's kind of cool if you have a Victron system, and I'm sure all the new inverters do that, but very cool system so that you can keep the generator loaded up. Not only keep it loaded up, but you also want to be able to remember lithium. As much as we like charging lithium batteries with solar, they're not getting the, if you have a small bank, it doesn't really matter, that's fine. If you have a large bank, they want as much energy as you could throw in it. Obviously there's parameters, but I think I can put up to 600 amps into my battery at a time, into my bank at a time, which I'm never going to approach that. But having said that, it'd be nice to be able to max the inverter out using it as a charger when conditions allow for me to do that, and so that's kind of cool. But anyway, this right here is a temperature probe on my battery. This right here is the freezer. The freezer's at 9.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Oops, 41% humidity. This says inverter space. I've moved this. You had this in the inverter space, but I've moved it, and you can see, I'll show you what it looks like. I just for fun, I put it, see that black puck right there? Right there. And the two wire ties there, I just put that. That's called a Ruby Bluetooth tag. And I have one that's in the freezer and one that's in the refrigerator and that one down there. And that is just telling me that the water coming through there was 94.5 degrees. And so I got to change the header on that, the name of that, but that's not a big deal right now. And then the refrigerator is at 33.6 degrees at 29% humidity. Really cool. Ruby tags, if you have a servo, if you have a Victron system, you probably should have a servo. It's the thing that goes and lets you communicate with everything, and you can do it anywhere in the world if you have an internet connection. If not, it archives a lot of stuff. It's a wonderful system. It does it, and you can control everything from one central place like this. Anyway, a fun thing to add, and they're not very expensive. I want to say they're like 50 bucks a piece or something like that. But you get these little Ruby tags, and they last for 2 years, and you can put a new battery in them afterwards, like a hearing aid battery. And like I say, I got one in the refrigerator, one in the freezer, and you can set it up so that I always forget to shut the alarms off. As soon as I shut the boat down, and after I've been on the boat for 3 weeks, I leave the top up and I pump everything out, and I try to get all the ice that has condensed around the evaporator. I try to melt all that off and get it out of there. Anyway, I'll be away from the boat headed to work, and I get all these text messages about all the alarms going off because my freezer is above freezing and my refrigerator is above a non-safe level. Anyway, one more thing before we go. Two more things, really. So, Sean, being the awesome electrical guy that he is, if you have a boat, hopefully you have a whole bunch of documentation that tells you all kinds of everything about the boat and all that. And it will give you all the numbers. All your wires should have numbers on it, what gauge they are, and you bring the number over and it tells you where it goes. This is something that if you have a quality boat builder, they'll do this. They also give this is a schematic of the panel for the AC panel. And this is really important because they had done alterations. Some yard had put the other inverter in and changed things around on the panel and never did anything. Sean did that, and when Sean changed it, first of all, he verified for me. It was kind of weird. I didn't realize that when you get the panel, you bring the panel out and you bring it over here like this. And I was going down this way when you're really going up this way, and everything makes more sense after we figured out what was going on. He just did one jumper. He moved one jumper over, and in doing that, he wrote what he did on the page. And that's not only going to help me, but if I ever have to diagnose something, I say, well, what did we do? If I bring an electrician on here, they can look at that, they can see it. And if I ever sell the boat, it's going to be really valuable. I would have really liked it if whoever had done the work on here before had given me the courtesy of doing that. One last thing before you go. I had started a discussion in the Island Packet Owners Association group, and it kind of blew up. A lot of people have a lot of strong feelings about this. I'm not really trying to fight with anybody. I learned on my tugboat channel. I think almost all of you know that I have a tugboat channel called Tim B at Sea, where I shoot videos when I'm at work. Anyway, my old Portuguese captain that taught me everything I know used to say that the day that we go to work and we don't learn something, it's time to head for the beach. Head for the beach is a term that we mariners talk about when we say we're not working on the water anymore. Ah, you got a job on the beach. It's not like he's a beachcomber or a lifeguard. It means that he's not going out to sea. Well, that's definitely the case with this. As you know, so much in life, the more we learn about things, the more we realize what we don't know. And I've always had a lot of confidence in what I know about electricity, both with DC, low voltage, AC with high voltage, and I've done a whole bunch of stuff, but I continue to learn. And you know, in the recreational world, this is no different. That there are things here that people like Island Packet didn't know back in the day, where things have changed. Remember, I told you that my panel and the inverter and the batteries, none of those were ready in 2002 for the things that I'm putting on them here now in 2023. So what I'm getting at is the issue of bonding. This is something that I learned about from Sean, and Sean's up on all this stuff for the ABYC code and all this sort of stuff. I don't know how he reads that stuff, but the guy's really great about this. What he has taught me, and I hope I get this right, is that there's basically 3 or sometimes 4 different scenarios when it comes to bonding. And whether you're in your house or you're on a boat, many of us know that it's code, and it's the right thing to do, that when you bond your ground to your neutral, this is an AC obviously, you only want to do that in one spot. You can have a bunch of grounds and all that's fine, but where they bond together, you want to do it in one spot. And I believe the reason why that is if there is a fault, by bonding it in more than one spot, you run the risk of sharing the load that goes back that would normally trip your breaker, so that you don't get electrocuted or you don't burn something down or something like that. So that's something that we all should be aware of. We all know that. Where things get tricky is on boats. There's a bunch of different scenarios. And this is something that apparently has been happening to a lot of people with older boats going to newer marinas. So if you have a situation where you used to go to a marina and plug in and everything used to work, now you go to a marina and they've got new pedestals, you plug in and you always trip their breaker. Well, this is why. So if I get this right, I'll have to ask Sean to weigh in to make sure that I'm not talking out my butt here. But the way I've been taught to understand this, if you are plugged in to shore power, you do not have anything on the boat that should be bonded. So in other words, the ground and the neutral should be completely isolated from each other. And that's not because that's not going to happen. It's because it gets bonded back at, not the pedestal, usually it gets bonded back where the pedestal goes into their panel. They'll have a panel that runs all the pedestals going up and down the dock. And that's really important. Scenario number 2, if you're running off your generator, the bonding should be done, according to ABYC's code, at the generator itself. Shouldn't be done over here or anything like that. And then on the inverter, there should only be one. And that depends on your specific scenario. My inverter only needs one because it's a Victron Multi-Plus, and the Victron Multi-Plus is just like line 1. It's got all 3 breakers there. So when you're using, when it senses that you are plugged in to shore power, or senses that you're running on the generator, it automatically trips all 3 of those and walks itself off. If none of those are available, it clicks the other way and has its own bonding right in its own case. So that gets back to the thing that if you have an older boat and it's tripping the GFI on the dock on newer boats, on newer docks, it's because you were bonded somewhere. Somewhere on the boat, you've got to be bonded somewhere. And years ago, that was a common thing. But things have changed, and they didn't change to make your life miserable. They changed to be more safe, and it's better. And it's a pain in the ass, and it really is. But it's better. And if you have if you have a boat and you spend a lot of money, or your life is worth something to you that you don't want to get electrocuted or burn up your boat or whatever it is, that might be something. Chasing down where those bonds are might be a thing. And remember, somebody that knows what they're doing is going to be able to first look at your panel, because you need your panel to be able to differentiate between whether you're sending the bond to, you're using the bond from shore, whether you're using it from the inverter, or you're using the bonding in the generator. So that's that. I hope that makes sense. You guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and you guys are awesome. Thank you so much to my patrons. I had some other big news for you too. I think I just put out a video saying that we're going to be at the boat show in Annapolis on the 13th and 14th of October. If you're in the area, I'd love to see you. We're going to try to have a meetup, and maybe we can all share some sea stories. That would be fun. But there's another piece of information for you, is that Paquita's in some need of some love. I'm not going to keep... I've kept her in the water for basically the last 3 years since I bought the boat, and now I need to go and pay for that. And one of the things I need to do is to remove about 10 or 20 years. I'm not sure if it's been 10 or 20 years, but there's a whole bunch of ablative paint, the anti-foul that's on the bottom that needs to be taken off, and we've got to get that off. Then we got to put new barrier coats on, and I'm considering going the route. If any of you guys, please, if any of you guys have any experience, I'm not talking about the guys that watch a video and then tell me about the experience somebody else had. I've done that many times myself. If you have used CopperCoat, not anti-foul with copper in it. I'm talking about the brand CopperCoat. I believe it's a British company, and I believe it's sold in America through Florida. And the way I understand it is, there are many people that have spent a lot of money having it installed by people they thought were professionals, and it went sideways and didn't work at all. I've had other people that have tried to do it themselves. They didn't get it right. It didn't work at all. But then there's other people that have done it right, and they're sticklers for going exactly by what the book says, and they're having phenomenal success. And the reason why I want to go with CopperCoat is that CopperCoat, if it's done right, they get over 10 years without pulling the boat. They have to go down and wipe it off, and I should be able to do that myself by hand, but without pulling the boat out of the water. But anyway, if you have CopperCoat, please write me. Write in the comments. Write at timb@sea.com. Excuse me, that's wrong. timb@sea@gmail.com is what I'm trying to say. God, I'm getting old. Anyway, I'd love to hear from you. And then we also have a thing you'll see when we go to there's a whole bunch of stuff that I need to buy at the boat show, and I'll be putting stuff on. So stand by for boat show videos. And I also got something really fun coming up pretty soon. I got a secret guy that's going with me to the boat show that I think you guys are going to have a lot of fun with. All right, see you guys. Take care. Be safe. And as always, I'll see you on the one.